Welcome into another exciting edition of Locked On Eagles Squad podcast on the Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. That right there, Louie DiBiase, Harry Mays, Marc Farzetta with you today. We talk about the culture continued with the Philadelphia Eagles, how it keeps going even now with another veteran retiring in Brandon Graham, how Lane Johnson's going to keep that going. We'll talk about recent comments made by Lane Johnson and what was the major lesson learned through the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl championship season. All that and more on this edition of Locked On Eagles Squad Show.
Fly, Eagles, fly. It's the Eagles Squad, sponsored by Game Time. Everything Philadelphia Eagles every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the city of brotherly love. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Eagles Squad Show starting now.
Culture is a big buzzword when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, gentlemen. Eagles fans everywhere know this. Every single person that comes into Philadelphia to play for the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the first things that they say is, oh, well, the culture. Hey, why Philadelphia? Oh, the culture. What do you like about Philadelphia? Oh, I like the culture. Well, what about the culture? Well, the culture is just great. Can you be more specific? Culture. That's kind of how it goes. Lane Johnson is one of the people that, of course, and I'll use the cliche, paved the lane for that culture in the city of Philadelphia. Now a two-time Super Bowl champion, and after the departures a year ago of Fletcher Cox, obviously of Jason Kelce, now Brandon Graham, Lane Johnson is one of the core four, the only core four remaining when you talk about those Super Bowl championship teams, plural. The culture with this team is one of those things that really can't be measured. It can only be experienced in covering the team and truly experienced as a player or a coach or even a general manager, maybe even owner of this football team. We're going to talk about some comments Lane Johnson made about him playing for this Philadelphia Eagles team for at least another year, how father time is just inescapable for any player. And also, I had a recent conversation with Brandon Graham, who talked about that culture continuing with sort of the younger birds taking over the reins of the culture. So we'll talk about that on the show today. And in honor of our series being done now, gentlemen, of our 2024 season rewind, what's the major takeaway from it? I mean, the obvious thing is Saquon Barkley's amazing. This team's a Super Bowl champion. But in recent news coming out with a ranking of Kellen Moore going from the top-ranked NFL team, according to Bleacher Report, this factors in coaching, this factors in ownership, this factors in your general manager or your director of player personnel, all of it. Kellen Moore went from the best in the Philadelphia Eagles to the worst, the 32nd ranked New Orleans Saints. So it just goes to show you how great it is right now in Philadelphia with that Super Bowl victory and the team that's going to be going back on the field in the upcoming season. So all that we'll get into today. But Harry, I know you saw a great piece and you listened to this as well as he was on Good Morning Football, Lane Johnson, talking about the culture and also his career here in Philadelphia. He's one of the guys, Harry, that people look to be a leader of culture in the locker room. When you think about his veteran leadership on this team, it's got to be more important now than ever.
Yeah, it really is. And you just have to look at, how the team fares when he's out of the lineup. I mean, it's the numbers are pretty staggering. I know Louie had those numbers. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago, and they're a different team. I mean, the offensive line is great. They're arguably the best unit in football, but when Lane Johnson is not a part of it for whatever reason, they're not as good. And he plays right tackle. It's kind of a everybody sort of associates, well, the left tackle is the most important position, because you're guarding typically the quarterback's blind side and all that. But Lane Johnson is really, to me, the cornerstone of this Eagles offensive line. And, what is he entering with the 12th, 13th year? He was drafted way back in 2013, oddly, when the culture was really at an all-time low. You talk about culture with Chip Kelly. It was so bad that the owner had to hit the eject button before the season was even over. In his third year, I think it was. They fired him after a loss to Washington on was it a Monday? I think that was a Saturday game, if I remember. I was at the game, and I think 2 days later they fired him, and have been coming back up from the ashes ever since. I find that word culture great. It's a great word, because I love they've got a great culture. Yeah, they win. It's like which comes first, the culture or the winning? Because I think both of them they feed off of one another. I mean, when you're winning, it's much easier to get along with everybody in your locker room and respect your coaches and buy in and all that kind of stuff. When you're losing, that's when everybody's looking for the life rafts and they're looking for a way out to the next best place. Like guys are just fending for themselves when you start to lose. It's so much easier to buy in and become a cohesive unit and have that great culture when you're winning. So I think it's a great term to talk about. And he is really the guy because he's been here through so many different sort of generations of teams. It seems like, it was so long ago, 2013. I mean, so much has happened, not only in the sports world, but in the world. That's a long time ago, man. and that he's still been here and still playing at the top of his game.
Mm-hmm. And I think it goes kind of hand in hand with culture. Winning obviously helps dictate the culture, but culture leads to winning too, because you look at, seasons where they did make the playoffs and they had just won a championship, 2018, 2019, even though they were still winning to a certain degree, their culture wasn't great. I don't know if you guys remember all those stories with anonymous sources going after Carson Wentz, and they brought in Orlando Scandrick, and that was such a disaster in that locker room. So I do think you also have to have a culture set that leads to winning, and Lane Johnson's crucial in that. Not just on the field, like Harry said, they've lost 4 of their last 5 games when Lane Johnson doesn't play, but off the field too. Like, he has seen every kind of season. Like, he knows what it takes to get to the Super Bowl after you've only won 4 games. He knows what it takes after you win a championship, how hard it is to get back there. Like, he's pretty much been through every kind of NFL season there is to go through, with new coaches, with being a champion, with losing a Super Bowl. So yeah, he's instrumental, and hopefully, he's still at the top of his game. I know Father Time is undefeated, but hopefully he can kind of keep battling this off, because right now he has shown no signs of decline. No. I still think he's the best tackle, left or right, in the NFL.
That Penei Sewell, though, he's just amazing.
He's gonna win Protector of the Year this year. Book it.
Let's just keep building it up, man.
Yeah,
piss off Lane.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing though, because and I agree with everything you guys are saying. Harry, the thing that I find so interesting is that you're absolutely right. Nobody gives a damn about your culture if you're a loser. Nobody cares. All right.
Right.
But I do think what's so amazing is so many coaches take over, and I think every single one of them wants to put in this culture, and they want to instill this culture in the locker room. And I think everyone's got great intentions to have a great culture. The rare exception is like an Urban Meyer, where you think of yourself at the pro level. You're going to be the culture. Well, that's not how it works. Mm-hmm. So every coach tries to instill a different type of culture when they take over. Now, if it's the Eagles, for instance, Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl here, and then there was a lean year and a lot of controversy when it came to Carson Wentz being healthy and whether or not he was going to be the guy going forward and all that. So it wasn't nearly as big a rebuild for Nick Sirianni as it was for Doug Peterson coming out of the ashes, as you put it, Harry, and rightfully so with Chip Kelly. But the thing that makes it work is you got to win.
Yep.
And you could go ahead and you could talk about flowers. You could talk about how, hey, guys, in this NFL locker room, you guys are like flowers. You guys are going to have these seeds, and we're going to plant the seeds, and they're going to grow. It's going to be beautiful. Like what? Like, what do you say? But it hit. It hit.
Did.
And not only did that hit, the reaction to the coach. Well, this guy doesn't know culture in an NFL locker room. You're talking about tulips over here. A lot of things have said oak trees. You can
How are veterans going to buy into that? You know what I mean?
Exactly. So after that, guess what? Yeah, exactly. And after that, guess what you got to do? You got to win. Yeah. So when people talk about a great culture in the NFL, and obviously the Eagles are the one we're focusing on here, but if you look at throughout the entire league, talk about a culture. The culture everyone wants is a winning culture, but how do you build that? What really are the seeds? What is the foundation? So the fact that was the goal of Nick Sirianni and really look at Jeffrey Lurie, look at Howie Roseman, what they wanted to put or at least keep in that locker room was that strong culture. Nick Sirianni knew how to keep cultivating that and bringing it along, and he did it. And he did it not just because he wanted to instill it, but he did it because he won. And when you have 10-1 starts to seasons 3 years in a row, you're a handful of coaches to do it. You've been to the playoffs every year you've been a head coach. You bounce back from a historic end in a negative way to a season. You bounce back the following year to win a Super Bowl. If you would have told the entire fan base of Philadelphia that the Eagles are going to go from a 1-6 end to the 2023 season to a Super Bowl championship team with Nick Sirianni still your head coach, they would have said you are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody would have said it. But that's exactly what they did. And the basis of it, the foundation of it was culture. The culture was backed up by winning. And now you can ride this wave through Brandon Graham retiring, Jason Kelce retiring, Fletcher Cox retiring, and then whenever Lane Johnson decides to call it a career, there are still guys in this locker room that are going to carry that baton of culture and winning ways through this locker room. And look, it's amazing to watch this team dominate the way they did in the NFC Championship game, dominate the way they did in the Super Bowl. But the thing that's so incredible about it is the fact that you feel like this team isn't done. Like they're young. Guys are under contract for a long time here. Saquon's back. The offensive line, sure, we've talked about questions on the defensive side of things. But it feels like if they could weather the storm of the end of 2023 and they could jump right back into it to the tune of winning a championship and giving the city a parade, it feels like the fallback on this culture is what continues to carry this team into their winning ways.
And it sounds cliche, but winning has to be the priority. Like that has to be what the identity of your culture is, because if not, you don't bounce back from that collapse in 2023. If there are selfish motivations inside that locker room, you're not willing to completely change your offense after the bye week in 2024, where you become a run-first team. If you have egos in that locker room and Jalen Hurts wants to put up gaudy numbers and A.J. Brown, for all the drama that's happened over the past few years with narratives about Brown, like they all totally embrace that. They've embraced anything that is required to turn the season around, not just in 2024, but like they did this exact same thing in 2021 when Marc was talking about the Flowers comment. They were 2-5 at that point. And then they went on to win, 7 of their last 9 games because they completely changed the philosophy. You have to have a selfless locker room. And, this team is young right now. We'll see if this culture can be maintained. The older they get, the more these guys get this big money. But right now, everybody is truly bought in, and you have to have that. And that's why, after 2017, they had some issues, because I don't think everybody was completely bought in on just winning championships and that being all that matters.
Yeah, I think the whole discussion is really interesting because, you look at some of the other established brands in the NFL, like Pittsburgh, Green Bay, New England when Belichick was there. Is New England's culture and their way of doing things going to sort of carry on now that Belichick is out of there? I don't know about that. But
they're 0 for 1.
You look right. You look at certain organizations over history. Well, that's the way they do things there. Like we still do that with Pittsburgh. You do that with Green Bay. You do that with, and I think you do that now with the Philadelphia Eagles, because I think it's irregardless. And it's not even a word, but it sounds good. Nick Sirianni. Sirianni could go on somewhere else in a couple of years and take his culture with him and try to reestablish it somewhere else. But I think the whole thing, the way the Philadelphia Eagles do things, and this can go way back to even when Andy Reid first started here with the whole building around the trenches thing. That's something that has lasted well beyond Coach Reid, right? That's part of what the Eagles do. They have a way of drafting and developing players, and it's an organizational thing that I think is really the quote-unquote culture. Sirianni came here he had no head coaching experience, especially at this level, and he came in here with a way of that he wants to do things. Okay, that's how these are your expectations as a players. This is the way I run a practice. This is the way we go about going on a road trip. All these things that he brought here. Then when they started to win, that became Sirianni's culture, right? But it was just his standard, his way of doing. I love talking about this stuff. I could go on all day about this kind of stuff. I just love the way this stuff affects the team environment. I think it's fascinating. That's why I was telling you I was so into the TV show that I just started watching, the Urban Meyer thing. I just love
Swamp Kings.
Yeah, I just love the way teams are built, how they can fall apart. I just think the whole thing is really cool.
See, I think at the same time, though, how the Eagles have had such maintained success, consistent success over the 21st century, is they allow each individual coach, individual locker rooms to dictate the culture. I think the Green Bay Packers, more so like the Pittsburgh Steelers and even the Dallas Cowboys, run into problems when they're like, this is the way the Pittsburgh Steelers do things. We don't rebuild. We don't draft young quarterbacks. We're going to win now. And this is the Steeler way. We win championships. But that kind of ego about their culture has almost kept them in this purgatory. And the same with the Dallas Cowboys and what Jerry Jones thinks that his organization still is, whereas the Eagles have even though it didn't work out, they let Chip Kelly totally embrace what he wanted the identity of this football team to be. They let Doug Peterson dictate the culture and Nick Sirianni, and the coaches let the players dictate the culture. So I think, honestly, like the Eagle way of sorts is kind of always adapting. It's being open-minded, and I think that's what you need in the NFL,
I like that.
because every version of the Eagles each year is completely different, and it calls for different things. To be
Pittsburgh
successful.
hasn't adapted.
No, they
really
haven't at
to
all.
the-
They still
to the
think they're
modern-
the 2010 team that's still competing for Lombardis, and that's why they win 9 games every year, no more, no less.
That's interesting. It's malleable, I believe is the word. You can kind of mold it into what you need it to be. And I think a shining example of that also affected the scheme in a way, which was after the bye week. I feel like after the bye week is like the buzzword. It's like a drinking game. Every time Eagles fans talk about after the bye week, take a drink.
Yeah.
But that's kind of that's my culture. By the way, the shirt, of course, celebrates a tradition in Philadelphia. But the fact that you can change it, but the core stays the same, but kind of how you protect the core is what is malleable about it. The fact that Nick Sirianni has that open door policy, especially with his veteran players, where guys like Lane Johnson in particular can be like, that Saquon Barkley is wearing an Eagles jersey now. Like, that's kind of cool. We should
Let's highlight him.
you should maybe hand him the ball and just see what he can do behind this offensive line. It's pretty good.
Right.
Like, I think that also speaks volumes because I think other places don't have that type of relationship. And one of the things that was it really went under the radar because the question wasn't about it. It was about something else. Nick Sirianni just kind of referenced how he doesn't go into the locker room. Like sometimes there's something that needs to be communicated. Nick's got to communicate it. He might be in the locker room like twice a year. You know what I mean? He lets that be the player's zone. And I think that's a very important thing. And I know a lot of coaches practice that same type of thing. But when you have the success that Nick Sirianni has had in his career as a head coach, it kind of hits different. He also doesn't – he says he also goes back there maybe to play a game of ping pong, and that's about it because they have their own little players' room where guys will get a haircut or something like that. But he generally lets that be the players' place to police themselves. And when you talk about guys going from college to the pros, coaching-wise, that's something that a lot of people talk about where, hey, you're coaching men now. This isn't, college boys.
Right.
These are men. And I think Nick Sirianni really recognizes that, and he recognizes it at the next level. You coach from boys to men, and then you also coach men to veterans. And that's where a guy like Lane Johnson's voice carries so heavy with a guy like Nick Sirianni because he understands that Lane's not just going to talk because he likes his words. He likes the way he sounds. He likes that twang. You know what I mean? He's talking because he knows what he is saying is going to help the team tremendously. Yeah. And for a coach to acknowledge that, I also think speaks a lot of the culture that Nick Sirianni brings.
It is interesting what you said about the malleable part of all of this because it is true. Like the Eagles have certain core principles that they don't waver from, whether it's on the field, whether it's how to build a roster, like the trenches. They're always going to invest more in the offensive and defensive line more than anything. But again, they're open-minded to changing things on the field, being a pass-first team, run-first team. They're open to different ways of building the team. We're finally going to draft. I mean, Howie's last 4 picks in the first 2 rounds were 2 corners, a safety, and a linebacker, right? And so each coach has had different identities. I think that's what makes the Eagles great in the last, 25 years is that they know the NFL, again, it calls for different things. You have to adapt or die, and I think Lane Johnson has seen that more than anybody because he's been a part of pretty much all these different outside of Andy Reid's era in this century. He's been a part of every other core. So, I mean, he knows it more than anybody.
Yeah. I think, it's always the case. I think that, great coaches adapt their style to their talent instead of I'm coming in here with my offense or, this is exactly, it's like a great coach figures out what he's got and what this guy does best. And we're going to sort of tailor the offense or tailor the scheme around what I've got on the field. And those guys end up prevailing.
Absolutely. When we come back, actually, before we hit this, I want to make sure we get this in here as well, because this is the quote from Lane Johnson. He was on Good Morning Football, and Harry, I know you saw this, talking about tying Brandon Graham for the longest tenured Eagle.
Yeah,
if he goes, plays this year, 35 years old now. Talked about this during the. He said, "Yeah, it doesn't feel like number 13 coming up here, season number 13, but here it is. I still feel young in heart." But you can't ignore Father Time. I'm still having fun and enjoying what I do. I love being around the guys competing. It's just something that I really love doing every minute of it. Yeah. Like it comes through. And when we saw him talk at, I think it was mini camp, the love of the game is still very much there. Like that part hasn't left him. He's not. We'll get to this a little bit later as well. He's not thinking about the greens. He's not thinking about getting out there on the maybe on the ranch or whatever. He's thinking solely about going out there and just being dominant. So yeah, Father Time might be catching up, but as far as the focus, the mental aspect of the game, and certainly the heart, that hasn't left him even a little bit.
Yeah, I thought it was also interesting what he went on to say about the tush push. Of course, they had to ask him that.
Naturally,
I think if you get a Philadelphia Eagle on whatever show it is, before they go, you got to ask him about the tush push.
Mandatory, yeah. Obligatory.
Yeah.
I think you make an argument that Lane Johnson, he could be a Mount Rushmore player for this organization when you think about it. One of the best tackles of all time. He's won 2 Super Bowls, been to 3. Could you make the argument he's a top 4 Eagle ever when it's all said and done? He's got a good case, especially if he keeps building this thing.
By the way, back to what you were saying, Harry. You talk about the tush push there.
Yeah,
I found it. Correct me if I'm wrong. He likened it to a rugby scrub.
Yes, right? Yeah. It didn't sound like he's the biggest fan of the play, like in the spirit of football.
I find that to be very, and that's a little disrespectful to his man Jordan Mailata. Not for nothing, just saying is all. Because Jordan said, if y'all watch rugby, he said it's not a rugby play, it's football play. So,
interesting.
My question is why do Lane and Jordan hate each other? That's my question.
Yeah,
let's stir that
610.
Wait, what were you saying? What were you saying, Louie? You don't get the play?
No. The thing with Lane, he's on the edge of the play.
They're on the outside of the play.
Oh yeah.
Cam Jurgens is the one that should be like, I hate this play.
Yeah. Well, he even said something to that effect. He said, where is it here? I thought, listen, I think the guys should have the votes are probably the center and both the guards because they're in the middle of the play. So he did mention something to that effect.
Yeah, he just got to stand there.
Yeah,
he's got to stand there and lean to his left.
Right.
You know what I mean? Come on. Real quick before we take the break, I want to say Jeremy Von Skyber, thanks for joining us today. Happy Friday, gents. Listening to you all from the beach at the Jersey Shore, Seaside Park. Listening to us. What's up, Jeremy? How you doing? Jazz World says, "Fly, Eagles, fly." There we go.
Now, where is Seaside Park? Where is that? Is that Long Beach Island?
That's like one
or
of
is
the
it north of that?
I think it's north of that. Seaside is Seaside is the I can't believe I'm about to say this. The Jersey Shore part of the Jersey Shore, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay. Oh, Jersey Shore, the show.
The land of
Snooki. Yeah, the show.
Yeah.
I believe that's where Seaside is.
Okay.
So, Jeremy, give me a good fist pump to some great music or something. I don't know. Jeremy also saying, remember when Chip was here and said scheme over personnel? Exactly. North about 15 minutes. There you go.
15 miles, so I guess
miles. Sorry, 15 miles.
Yeah, okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
That is correct. Thank you.
Stuff.
There we go. We're live. There we go. And I love this one. Jared just chimed in as well. Man, F Chip. Thank you, Jared.
Is Chip Kelly still the most hated person in Eagles history of this organization?
Did you see the video of LaShawn McCoy signing autographs? And somebody just yelled, just walked by, Chip Kelly sucks. And LaShawn goes like, yep, that's right. And just kept signing the autograph.
You know where he is right now? He's at UNLV.
Chip. Wait, who is?
No, he's
Chip
the Raiders offensive coordinator.
I thought it was UNLV.
No, the Raiders hired him.
Oh, really?
Pete Carroll's play caller this year.
Oh,
yeah, he's coming to Philly.
With Pete Carroll?
The Chip Kelly revenge game is here 10 years later at the link in December.
Finally. But they should have LaShawn McCoy and Deshaun Jackson as honorary captains that day.
Bring in Michael Vick and Jeremy Maclin, too. Let's do it.
Jeremy Maclin.
And Mariota. We'll do like an Eagles Legends game because he was an Eagle, so we'll bring in Mariota.
And invite Sam Bradford to the game, but don't have him as an honorary captain.
Yep.
Sammy Sleeves.
Too
So
soon.
get him an
Love
extra large T-shirt for his.
Where's Mariota? Where's Mariota now?
He's in Washington. So
He's
never
still in
mind.
Washington.
He will not be there. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
That might be a conflict of
All
interest.
right. When we come back, I had a conversation with Brandon Graham, and it continues the culture conversation. I also want to get Kellen Moore involved in this conversation as well, because it does show, man, we talk about how great things are in Philadelphia. You got to really want to be a head coach to be where Kellen Moore is right now, according to Bleacher Report. Talk about that and more when we return. This is Locked On Eagles Squad Show on the Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. You guys have heard us talking before about Monarch Money. Monarch Money is where it's at, especially if you're just got married and you're combining finances. It takes the stress out of it, makes it so easy. With Monarch Money, go to monarchmoney.com to find out more. Whether you're growing your savings or planning for a big purchase, Monarch Money puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO right in your pocket, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Maybe not getting married recently. Maybe you just had kids. You got to save for college. I got 2 young kids already thinking about saving for college. Already saving for college. And Monarch Money is helping me do all that. So take advantage right now at monarchmoney.com. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Monarchmoney.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year at monarchmoney.com. Brandon Graham continues to be one of the best possible people you could speak with. And I had the pleasure of catching up with him at a Zack Ertz Family Foundation event in North Philly, Hunting Park, technically, I believe.
Okay.
For a play day, basically, with Timoteo Sports. And it's a great youth program in North Philadelphia, really throughout the city, where they get younger kids involved, get them off the streets, get them playing sports, having fun and all that. Zack Ertz headed it up. I talked to Zack as well, talked to Brandon Graham. And they just loved me. Connor Barwin was there. I didn't get a chance to catch up with him because he's Connor Barwin. He is far too active. I cannot keep up with him. So he was bouncing around helping the kids out as well. And it was a really great program at Lighthouse Field in North Philly. And a lot of kids were running around having a great time. But got a chance to talk to BG. And some of my takeaways there were everyone wants to know what he's doing next. He's in no rush. He's just enjoying retirement, being there for the family, taking his daughter to gymnastics. His son's playing sports too. I thought his son broke his pinky. His son broke his pinky.
How old is his son?
I don't know. I think 7.
Okay.
6 or 7, I want to say. So he said he's got 4 or 5 more weeks before he's back playing sports. I was like, if he's anything like his father, he'll be healed in like a week. He'll be fine, and he'll be ready
So
to
what
go.
year is he draft eligible? We'll have to pair him up with Jeremiah Travis Jr.
That's a great question to ask. Has he got an agent yet?
Yeah.
Taking his daughter to gymnastics and all that stuff, so they're having a great time doing that, but nothing is lined up as far as the jobs go. But I did ask him about culture and trusting this locker room right now to take that next step, not just with the culture, but also with the talent and the bar that is set and getting back to a Super Bowl, because this is still a wild thing. We talk all the time about how we got to get used to this team paying a running back. We got to get used to this team paying a linebacker. This is uncharted territory when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles fan base. But above all that, we have to get used to this new world we live in, fellas, where this is not just a great culture, but this is a 2-time Super Bowl champion franchise. This is the world we live in right now. We are not used to this world. So how does it stay this way? How do you keep staying on this championship level where you're either, competing for a championship, you're getting close to a championship, you're staying in the conversation nationwide when it comes to a real Super Bowl contender? Because this is something we're not used to. We're used to, oh man, can the Eagles make it out of the NFC? Because more often than not, they get to the promise, or they get to the mountaintop, but they can't get over it. Now we're in a world where they get over it. They build for the next one. And one of the things that we talked about, Nick Sirianni, one of the things he showed his team to motivate them was he showed them the valley and then the mountaintop. He's like, down here, we're in the valley. And now we got to take all these steps to get to there. But we can't think about what's up there. We can only think about the next step along the way. And I thought that painted a perfect picture of what the Eagles are trying to do, because the last 3 years, they have gotten to that mountaintop, or maybe I should say a step below it, and come up at least right there. And twice they've made it up there. This isn't a world we're used to. How do you maintain it? And what Brandon Graham talked about was young guys stepping up, especially on the defensive side of things. And it's not unlike the questions we've already asked. He talked about Nakobe Dean helping out this defense, coming back healthy. He talked about Zack Baun being the anchor of this defense behind Jalen Carter. He talked about Nolan Smith continuing his own legacy of being able to get after the quarterback and kind of at least speed up that quarterback's clock. And guys like that also taking over for Josh Sweat. I mean, there is really this changing of the guard defensively, which leads us to asking so many questions. But it went beyond – the conversation I had with him went beyond the, oh, well, what's he going to say about former teammates? It went into a convincing argument that he is leaving this defense in particular in a great place to continue not only the culture that we talked about, but continue the high level of talent that makes that culture so easy to buy into.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Louie.
I was going to say, we could get into it all day about like what it takes on the field to be consistently a Super Bowl contender. But if we're talking more about what Brandon Graham's alluding to with, the young defense kind of taking over from a leadership perspective, I hate to quote Jalen Hurts and say this, but you got to keep the main thing the main thing. You really do, though. Like you can't get bored of the process. Like Nick Sirianni said, of climbing that mountaintop. When you've been there so often, you can't let your cup get full. Like you can't be complacent. And a lot of times, not just in the NFL, but in the world of sports, when teams are going through dynasties, a lot of times, again, like I was saying earlier, individual motivations get in there. Trades happen, players regress. Like you have to really be obsessed with championships being all that matters, not your receiving yards, not your passing yards, not your next contract. Like obviously those are parts of the equation, but I do think that was a big part of what happened after Super Bowl 52 is this team wasn't ready to repeat. It didn't feel like that was the main motivation, or at least not until like the end of the season when they woke up and said, oh my gosh, we're 4-6 and we need to make the postseason. So I think you truly just have to be like obsessed with just winning being the only thing that matters at all costs. And luckily, this team on both sides of the ball, a lot of their DNA is made up of guys that went to Alabama and Georgia, and they're young players, but they know what it takes to consistently get to the mountaintop, even if it's in a college level. And so I think Brandon Graham's right. They're in a good place because even though they're a younger locker room now, they have the right DNA. Like these guys have the right makeup, and they've done it before multiple times.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up there at the end of the guys they draft, because that's where I was going. You got, continue to draft out of the SEC. I mean, I think that's really, boil it down to that. I mean, whether it's Alabama, Georgia, or any of these other programs, I mean, those teams, that's essentially professional football anyway.
Right.
At a, 19, 20-year-old level. And I don't think you can go wrong because you talk about culture, many of those programs – have very stringent cultures, whether now I know Saban's no longer there, but, this other guy that has come from University of Washington, I think he's going to carry on pretty well. He had a little rough year this year, but these teams, these organizations at the college level, a lot of them are run like NFL teams, and keep getting those guys. You can't have enough of those guys. Every now and then you bring in a guy from Iowa and you bring in a guy from Toledo, and they fit in just fine because they've got the characteristics that fit the team too. But by and large, I don't think you can go wrong. Howie figured it out. He finally figured it out. And we're reaping the benefits.
Yeah, he didn't go Washington State,
TCU,
Stanford, and TCU back to back to back. Yeah.
Right.
Two more things with Brandon Graham from my takeaways of the conversation. He didn't say this, but he alluded to it. Money. You could be a guy like Zack Baun, picked up, worked out with Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio understood what he could really do on a football field. Bang, you're talking about highest paid linebacker, or one of the highest paid linebackers. You're talking about highest paid linebacker certainly in Eagles history, and a guy having an all-pro year. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, sure, you could look at a championship and go, oh, yeah, the Vic Fangio guy knows what he's doing. But from a more selfish perspective, which can be motivating to some of these guys, he took the Zack Baun guy, realized what he did. If I listened to him, I could get my bag and also win a championship. That works out for me. Mm-hmm. Mekhi Becton, if you're looking at Jeff Stoutland, wait a minute, Mekhi Becton didn't even play tackle or played tackle, never played guard. I listen to this guy, Jeff Stoutland. Maybe I get my bag. If I'm Kenyon Green, for instance, and I'm coming here to Philadelphia. Oh, I can have a one-stop here and go somewhere else and all of a sudden make that money. Yeah, hey, championships are nice for all of us, but let's not get it twisted. What a lot of these guys are focusing on, all right, yeah, I'd love to win, but if I come here and listen to this guy, I could win and get that bag.
Right.
That's a nice thing. And the players that he alluded to, the main one was Zack Baun. And Milton Williams was also mentioned as well for guys that came in here and were able to go out there and get that bag.
Yeah, it's a third-round pick, and then all of a sudden he got to play again alongside Jalen Carter, and all of a sudden he gets the bag somewhere else, which is, hey, great. I'm sure they would have loved to have kept Milton Williams. They can't keep them all. But, they establish, Howie and the coach sit there and say, well, we're keeping Carter. Okay, he's the guy we're keeping. Would we love to keep the guy that plays next to him? Yeah, ideally we'd love to keep Davis maybe if he has a great year this year, but maybe they can't.
We'd love to keep Batman and Robin, but we're not going to pay Robin like Batman.
Right.
And Milton Williams got a Batman-like contract. He's getting paid $26 million a year in New England.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point. After 2017, the other thing they didn't do well is when these other guys got paid elsewhere, they didn't draft well enough to keep that. It's really hard. Like, you're going to have your main core on both sides of the ball paid long term, but that consistent turnover when you're a consistent contender and these guys do cash in, it's not always going to be in your city with your team. You've got to be able to replace them fast through the draft, through free agency. Those teams in the past with Howie Roseman running the organization didn't do so well with that, and they were relying on older players that got injured all the time. They didn't have a lot of depth. Right now they're in great shape, but they have to hope these, this draft class next year is continually, churn out cheap talent that's ready to play right now, because they're going to need that. The more expensive your roster gets at the top, the younger it's going to get at the bottom, and the cheaper it's going to have to be. So you need those guys to consistently turn out.
Absolutely. The last thing I will say, Harry, I saved this one last just for you. I didn't know Brandon Graham was a golfer. He was a golfer when he played, and now he's golfing even more now that he's retired.
Wow.
I wonder what his handicap is.
Yeah.
I didn't get into that specific,
wonder if
but
he has one.
He does enjoy it, and as one would assume, even though it doesn't go against the normal golf culture,
right?
He does talk that smack. He does talk that smack.
I imagine he does. Yeah.
His favorite phrase apparently is, "How about a breakfast ball?" Like, takes another one.
Oh boy!
But he doesn't say it about his own shot. He says it about your shot.
BG's just giving out mulligans.
Could you imagine being on a golf course and you're hearing somebody just keeps talking, and you're like, it sounds familiar, whoever that is. And then you catch up to them or whatever, and it's Brandon Graham.
There is a Brandon Graham listed in Pennsylvania with a handicap of 4.9, which is really good. Now, I don't know if that's him because it doesn't say what club he's associated with.
There's some random guy out there watching the show named Brandon Graham, like, that's me.
Right, yeah. 4.9.
Some 17-year-old kid on his high school team just killing it. Named Brandon Graham.
Yeah.
It's like that Michael Jordan commercial. Other guys named Michael Jordan, everyone's disappointed when they meet him.
Yeah.
It's like, you're Brandon Graham. Oh. Okay. All right this way. Okay. But yeah, just as you would assume, just great fun conversation with BG. And then as far as Zach Ertz went, he's still in the league, obviously still playing for a rival. Major takeaways from him was this guy's legacy. He has no. We've talked about this before. Zach Ertz to me is one of the most underappreciated Philadelphia Eagles in the history of the franchise.
Totally agree. We talk about the core four of Cox, BG, Lane, and Kelsey. I think Ertz belongs in that conversation more than he is.
And I blame Carson Wentz.
Yeah,
I blame Carson Wentz. Yeah, because this amazing season that Zach Ertz had with the number off the top of my head I can't remember, but record catches at the time for a tight end
over 100, right? Yeah,
I think it was 110 sounds on about right to me, but it was taken away. It was taken away because Carson Wentz, all he does is focus on Zach Ertz. So
you blame Alshon Jeffrey for that, for talking to Josina Anderson behind closed doors.
True, but I think look, when you see that many catches for a tight end, I think people kind of put it together.
It was 116.
116.
116. So I look back on that and I think people almost, whenever it gets brought up, they rip Carson Wentz instead of praising Zach Ertz. And this 10 tight ends in football history have caught 50+ touchdown passes. 50+. He's one of them.
He's got 53.
Yeah, 53.
Yeah,
I think he's one away from sole possession of 9th place, all time. We're talking top 6, top 7, top 10 in all major statistical categories for a tight end. Oh, and last year he also had, 7 touchdown receptions?
Yeah, with a rookie quarterback.
With a rookie quarterback!
Yeah.
He was going to break the Eagles' all-time receptions record if he wasn't traded. Like, he was close. He only needed, one more year to break the record. He had 5 straight seasons with at least 70 receptions. I mean, 116, then 88 in back-to-back years. I agree. I think it's somewhat Carson Wentz's fault. I also think it's Howie Roseman's fault because he was terrible at bringing in wide receivers.
Yes.
So because Zach Ertz had to be the go-to guy in the passing game, and it limited their attack after 2017, he almost did kind of suffer from that, and people underrate him. And then you brought in Dallas Goedert as well, so you're kind of going with a 1-2 punch at tight end. So they kind of really leaned into that 12 personnel approach. But yeah, I think you can make the argument he's one of the most underrated Eagles legends and one of the most underrated tight ends of all time. I just don't think, again, in his style of play wasn't sexy, right? Like no yak Zack, remember, like no yards after the catch. And, his style was he was a great route runner and separator, but he didn't really have a lot of exciting plays.
He was a possession guy.
Yeah, I think that hurt his brand a little bit too.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Howie Roseman wasn't good at the wide receiver thing until he went and found one in the SEC at Alabama.
Right.
And then he goes and gets Jalen Hurts, his buddy, who played at Ole Miss, which is an SEC team. See how it works?
And by the way, Zach Ertz helped Devontae catch his first touchdown. He set a little pick on that first reception against Atlanta, 2021.
Nice.
So.
There you go. Beautiful. Little pick play. And then just the parts that'll just make you throw up about how great Jayden Daniels is. But he is. Look, when I asked him about that, he just said it's is the type of guy that's first in, last out, so mature. It doesn't even realize how great he is because he's too humble. And I was like, okay, enough of this. Anyway, so this charity, no. It's all the things that, look, we watched it from afar from an Eagles camp perspective, and he looks like the real deal. He looks like the real deal. So now I just cross my fingers that, he has a regression year. That's what we all do.
Jeremy Van Sciver.
RG3 had a great rookie season in Washington, too, at one point.
Yes, right.
Oh, Jeremy Van Sciver, like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Remember that dude? J-Jaw?
Oh, jeez. Wait, hold on. Oh.
Remember him?
You mean Howie Roseman draft picks?
Yeah.
Drafted him over DK Metcalf. Stanford.
Yeah. Yep.
They went Washington State, and then, Miles Sanders went to Penn State, but they went Pac-12 in 2 of their first picks that year.
Dillard went to Washington State.
Andre Dillard.
Yeah.
Yep. Howie Roseman loved Pac-12 after dark, I'll tell you.
I ever tell you when I kind of knew that it wasn't going to be Dillard? This happened on the same day. I saw our friend Trey Thomas, and Trey was like, I'm trying to talk to this Dillard guy, and I don't think he wants to listen. And I'm like, ooh, that's not good.
Yeah.
And then I saw him on that same day in the locker room, and I said, hey, can I grab you for a minute? He goes, I got to grab a shower. I was like, okay. Yeah. And then he was back in his locker 2 seconds later. Same clothes, everything. 2 seconds later, he's back. And I'm like, okay, you don't want to talk. That's fine. Someone else, hey, can I grab you for a minute? He's like, oh, I got to go grab a sandwich. Okay. Somebody else. It was four different people, 4 different excuses. I wasn't mad. Obviously, he didn't want to talk. I'm not complaining. But I was more impressed that he just kept cranking out the different excuses.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, hey, not today, guys. Okay. Right. All right, fine. But it was on the heels of he didn't want to listen to Trey Thomas, or he's like, I didn't have his attention. Like, I don't know. I'm there talking to him. I'm there to talk to him. And it was like, you don't want to listen to one of the best all-time tackles in Eagles history? Okay. I don't know how this is going to go well, but it doesn't seem good. Doesn't seem like it's going to go positive.
One of the rare misses the Eagles have ever had when it comes to drafting an offensive lineman, especially a tackle. Yeah.
He's with the Niners still, isn't he? Isn't he out in San Francisco?
I want to say it is West Coast.
From Tennessee before that. I mean, he did end up getting paid because he had a solid last year when he had to come in for Mailata. Like, he was actually okay on the field. Played some guard, too. He at least got paid a little bit.
Jazz World is talking about that Super Bowl catch from Zach Ertz. That's another thing, by the way. Another reason to say underappreciated, undervalued, underrated. Super Bowl game-winning catch in the Super Bowl.
Not just that one. How about the 4th and 1 conversion before that? That saved the game. They're down 33-32. If he doesn't make that play, they don't win that first championship.
Yeah. It's It's like everything we could say that's great about him, there's something that was a little greater in a moment where, like, you're talking about the strip sack of Tom Brady. You're talking about the Super Bowl. You're talking about the Philly special.
Right.
You know? And then you're like, oh, yeah, the game-winning catch. That was cool, too. Like there's just – anyway, there's just things that unfortunately overshadowed it. But hopefully one day he comes back, retires as an Eagle, has that moment. That'd be a great thing.
For sure.
And get his just due then. There was one more I wanted to get in here. Jared says one of the best tight ends. Jerry Von Skyver's on the same page. Dude, that's why you draft from the SEC. They're all pro. They're all pro ready.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's not rocket science.
No, it's very easy. Keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, stupid. Real quick, I'm going to get into when we come back. Kellen Moore, literally, this isn't a knock of Kellen Moore. This is just more like, wow, the Eagles really are being recognized as the place to be. We'll talk about that more when we return. This is a quick blink of a break on Locked On Eagle Squad podcast. And just like that, we're back. So, as we know, the New Orleans Saints are not a very good football team. Well, Bleacher Report just put it out there, and I saw this by way of Bleeding Green Nation, so hat tip to those guys. The Philadelphia Eagles, of 32 NFL teams, are ranked as the best spot to be in the NFL. Coaching, general manager, owner, players, most importantly, talent, obviously a Super Bowl winner, not shocking to anybody. But when you start talking about scraping the bottom of the barrel, Kellen Moore went from number 1 to number 32. I'm reminded of a phrase I heard from Seth Rogen, the comedian, writer, and all that. And he said, I wanted to be a boxer until I met someone that really wanted to be a boxer. You might want to be a coach until you really need to be a coach. And right now in New Orleans, they're really going to need a coach in Kellen Moore. He's taking on a lot. And he's been through the ranks here in the NFL. When you talk about offensive coordinator, certainly paid his dues at that spot. Some might say he was gifted it too early in Dallas. Well, they did well in Dallas with him as their offensive coordinator, despite a revolving door at quarterback at times. Also a revolving door at running back at times. Went into went into Los Angeles with the Chargers, and unfortunately, through 1 year, had some injuries there at the quarterback position, then came here to Philadelphia and won a Super Bowl in 1 year. He's got a lot in front of him there. Either way, this year is going to show how great a coordinator and coach he could be down there if he's able to elevate them despite what they have, what they lack, more importantly. And then it also shows you the shoes that Kevin Patullo has to fill in Philadelphia. This could be a kingmaker position for Kevin Patullo, for the Eagles, really. And I don't think Kevin Patullo has one great year and all of a sudden he's gone. I think one of the reasons they elevated from within is because they realize a guy like him will have at least a little bit of staying power, even if they do win again this year. But what he has at his disposal now, you could go from being a Super Bowl winning coordinator to a head coach, still with a somewhat quick turnaround. Even if it's the worst team in the NFL, you could go to that spot and attempt the ultimate goal of being a head coach in the NFL. The Eagles' talent that's here is obviously great for everybody in Philadelphia. And to get to the point, I know I'm kind of beating around the bush here, but to get to the point, the Eagles right now, with the culture that we've talked about and the talent that they have, can elevate you to a position that is the ultimate mountaintop for any coach or coordinator in the NFL right now, which is being the head coach. Does Kevin Patullo have that staying power if the Eagles win another Super Bowl, or are they going to be turning over a new leaf already, Louie, when you talk about another new offensive coordinator coming in potentially in another year?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll happen after this season because Patullo is a brand new play caller. Even with Shane Steichen, it took a couple years. Frank Reich, though, was hired after just 1 year as the play caller in 2017. Well, him and Doug Peterson splitting that responsibility. But for me, it's like Kellen Moore, when you look at also his track record of what he did in Dallas and LA, that was also part of why he got poached so quickly. He already had a reputation as a good play caller that helps elevate quarterbacks. So I don't know. If they're like the number 1 passing offense in football this year or a top 5 passing offense and their play calling is incredible, Patullo will probably get picked. But I think you're right that part of the internal promotion is with the idea of, we at least have him for a couple years because he is brand new to this. And if they keep the play style they had last year, I don't know if he'll be poached. Because, again, Moore had a reputation already that led to him getting a head coaching job quicker. At least that's what I hope. Maybe that's more of the heart opinion over the head. But I think right now, Patullo, I'm more nervous about, is he the long-term play caller for the Eagles, more so than I'm afraid he's going to get a head coaching job. I'm thinking more, is this going to be Brian Johnson 2.0 or Mike Groh? Because this is the kind of move the Eagles have made in the past that hasn't always worked out.
All right. Press Taylor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and to show you how fragile this whole thing is, you mentioned Shane Steichen. He's the third coach on the list of coaches to be fired on odds. He's 6-1 behind Brian Daboll, who's at 4-1, and Mike McDaniel in Miami at 5-1. And then Jonathan Gannon is fifth at 7-1. So, just because you get one doesn't mean it lasts very long. And, you go to the worst franchise right now, which is New Orleans. It's a Mickey Loomis thing more than it is a Kellen Moore thing to me. Now, they've drafted in the offensive line 2 studs, you would think, at both tackles over the last 2 years in the first round. They also moved another former first-round pick into guard. So they're building an offensive line, which Kellen Moore should identify with. They just need a quarterback. Now, maybe he doesn't want to be too good this year, and maybe they can get Arch Manning in there to, follow in his dad's footsteps.
Spot.
It might not be a bad spot, is right. That's where I'm going.
I'd rather be there than, getting a job with a team that's going to win like 8 or 9 games and you're caught in purgatory. Although, as a coach, you got to win pretty quick to keep your job, but you also have to find a quarterback. That's your food ticket for the future. Like if he can get the first or second overall pick this year, get somebody like Arch Manning, boom, he's at least got a couple years to work with there. So I almost think it's not a bad destination. Like it's going to be a crappy first year.
Yeah.
If you can get that quarterback, it buys you some time at least.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said, Louie, about and I think that's great. I think that's really interesting. And Arch Manning being in New Orleans would be wild. But
it'd be great.
Yeah, I mean,
good for the league
to get drafted there.
Yeah.
The field day they would have on like primetime games, just everything, just another Manning, and not to mention just also in New Orleans where his grandfather played. But the other thing is, Louis, I found that really interesting. What is the world where Kevin Patullo does leave after 1 year? Like you mentioned, long term, I think it's impossible for him to be a long-term Eagles coordinator. And that's not a knock on him. That's also a compliment. Like, yeah, you could obviously say it's either going to be sink or swim, feast or famine. It's either going to be Brian Johnson or it's going to be Kellen Moore type of deal. But if he's really good, I think he's around for 1 more year. But more specifically, I think the biggest ask we have had of the Eagles passing game from last year to this upcoming season is be middle of the road. Don't be the star of the show. You got Saquon for that. I don't need Jalen Hurts to throw for 4,000 yards. I don't need that. But if he does, I think that's the only way.
Yeah.
Kevin Patullo is gone after 1 year. Is if this offense is revamped in another way, whether out of scheme or unfortunate necessity, and that's all I'm going to say about it, because I don't want to put any hex on anything.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the only way I see him leaving after 1 year as the offensive coordinator, is if somehow he's got to overhaul this Eagles offense. And I don't think he does it schematically willingly, but the only way I see him leaving is if all of a sudden you see Jalen Hurts put up like true gaudy MVP numbers for a regular season where you see him with 3,500 yards, 4,000 yards. You see him with 30 touchdown passes, that kind of thing. That's the only way I see it happening. And I do see that as being highly unlikely.
Because if it's, you're right. Because if it's the same offense as last year where they're just running through Saquon and it's all the same play calls, it's all the same schemes as Kellen Moore had or Nick Sirianni's had in the past, like what is Kevin Patullo doing that stands out that makes me want to hire him as my head coach? I think the passing success would be the different variable. And that's also what the NFL wants to hire in a head coach is a play caller that can elevate their passing game long term. And if he doesn't do that, if they're throwing it with the 32nd attempts in the league, like they are dead last in passing attempts, I don't think he gets a job either.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. When we come back, we did our whole series for the last handful of weeks here about rewinding, last couple of months actually, rewinding the Philadelphia Eagles season that was 2024. I'm going to ask you guys when we come back from this quick blink of a break about what is your major, what is the lesson we learned? And for the people in the chat right now, what is the lesson you learned? And not just, oh, they're a Super Bowl champion or Saquon's really good. You know, what is the lesson you learned when you talk about the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles season that ended, yes, with a parade down Broad Street? We'll talk about that and more in return. This is Locked On Eagles Squad Show. Food for thought, but you guys can come up with your own, but just so people understand where I'm coming from with this question. After last year, do you go, wow, Nick Sirianni really knows how to run that locker room, really knows how to motivate that locker room, really knows how to keep the focus of that locker room? You talk about Howie Roseman just being simply incredible, Saquon Barkley being amazing, Jalen Hurts, the biggest question. He answered it last year. Louie, I'll start with you. When you look back on the 2024 season, what is your greatest lesson learned from that year?
I think it's that you're not, as a general manager, you're not supposed to sacrifice one position in the name of strengthening another one. And I think Howie Roseman has learned that along the way. Like, as we talked about earlier, yes, you should have core principles about how to build your roster. Like, obviously invest more in the trenches at quarterback than other positions. Like, you should invest more at pass rusher than linebacker or safety. But I think what Howie Roseman learned last year and why that roster was so complete, it's why you can make the argument it's a top 5 team in the history of the NFL, is because Howie said, finally, I'm not going to sacrifice safety anymore, linebacker, where there's been years he doesn't invest in those spots at all. And that holds back this football team. Yeah, obviously, again, you don't spend first-round pick after first-round pick on linebackers in those positions, but I like that he finally took an offseason and said, I'm going to take 2 cornerbacks here. I like that this year he said, I'm going to pay Zack after having an all-pro season, not let him walk out the door. I'm going to draft a safety in the second round. I'm going to pay a running back in Saquon. I think he learned last year to not sacrifice one spot. Like, it's hard to have that complete of a roster every year, but you should always strive for that. I think some NFL teams, some GMs settle and say, well, I can't have a great safety and this pass rusher and this great linebacker, and the rosters are held back as a result. Howie, I don't think, settled at all last year, and it led to it being one of the most complete rosters I've ever seen in the history of the sport.
So Howie didn't settle.
Yeah, it's a good one.
All right, fair enough. Harry, you got one?
Yeah, it's about Jalen Hurts, and I don't really know how to phrase it, but it happened like pre-bye week and post-bye week. There was a difference in the quarterback and the way the quarterback played. He wasn't loose with the football, and that was the one thing that I knew that he could control, and he did it. He was a different guy after that break, after the New Orleans game. He had 4 interceptions and 3 fumbles lost in those first 4 games. Over the course of his next 15 games, which included the playoffs, of course, he missed the final 2 games of the regular season. 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles lost over the course of that stretch of games. And those were your most important games as well. Also, the touchdowns. I mean, he had 6 total touchdowns in the first 4 games, 36 over the next 15 games. I mean, there was a absolute about face with the way he played on the field and really the way he led the team. To me,
the game we talked about, and I think you had something going on for the last segment, Harry, and we were talking about the Rams game in the playoffs.
Oh yeah. And
there was a play I teased before we went into that break, and I was talking about there was a play in that Rams game where he was in the end zone, he took the safety. He didn't let the ball fly, didn't let it rip, didn't throw at the feet of a crossing Dallas Goedert. I don't know if he saw him or whatever, but I thought that play completely defined Jalen Hurts in terms of his mentality and his approach to playing quarterback after the bye, which was under no circumstances am I going to compound an issue and make it worse. I'll take what I know to be bad in exchange for what I know could be worse. In other words, I'll take a safety without trying to get rid of the ball and maybe fumbling it by putting the ball back and somebody knocks it out, or I throw an errant bad pass when I'm just trying to throw it away. It gets intercepted, pick 6. I'm not going to compound the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to I might accept the problem, taking a sack as opposed to trying to throw it away and maybe coughing up the football on a fumble, maybe throwing another interception. He is going to value the pigskin more than anything. And that's what I really learned about Jalen Hurts last year as far as a lesson. The lesson I learned was he's not playing the same game. Other people, they might think, what? I need to make the play. Guys like Joe Burrow, I need to do this. Yes, he's got the safety net of a guy like Saquon Barkley, but some other quarterbacks might try to insert themselves where they don't need to. And he just took what the game gave him. When you hear Tom Brady talk, that's exactly what he talks about all the time. I just took what they gave me. That's it. They're giving me this. There it is.
Yeah,
exactly. Whether it's checking down to a run with Saquon Barkley or, hey, I know that rub route that we love to run. That's right there for the taking. Let's use it. Oh, wait, no, I do have Devontae Smith down deep down the middle of the field in the Super Bowl. I'm going to go and hit that guy.
Right.
Just playing smart heads up. The biggest lesson I feel like we learned this year is that unequivocally, unquestionable, Jalen Hurts is the guy.
It's about making the right play, not the highlight play necessarily. Right. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I think for a lot of people, you absolutely look the exclamation point. You could be the biggest Jalen Hurts fan in the world, but winning a Super Bowl and a Super Bowl MVP and getting that picture with the trophy, with the Lombardi Trophy, MVP trophy, and the big smile, that was the exclamation point on a fantastic season for Jalen Hurts. That certainly doesn't overshadow Saquon Barkley by any means and his historic accomplishment this year. But you talk about the quarterback position is the most scrutinized in this entire country. Your guy, your quarterback won you a Super Bowl and an MVP, answering a big question that people had. Well, can he do it if someone stops Saquon? Somebody stopped Saquon, and he put up incredible numbers. So, to me, that's the biggest lesson you can take away from last year.
It felt like justice. Like Jalen Hurts was so selfless all year that it's awesome that he got to have the moment in the Super Bowl when he kind of took a back seat all year, that he got to be the one that won the Super Bowl. And it didn't make him gun shy. Like that approach, being safer with the football, especially if a team, is pulling back your passing attempts, sometimes that can get in a quarterback's head and maybe they become gun shy as a result of Sam Bradford type of quarterback. But Jalen didn't become that player. Like he found a perfect balance of knowing when to pick and choose his spots to be aggressive and when to not be. And I thought he was surgical is a good way to put like his performance at certain points last year. Like he's never been like a surgical pocket player throughout his career, but I thought last year there were moments where he was just perfect in that kind of way. And I think that's going to even evolve more in 2025.
All right. It's a Friday show, gentlemen. Weekend plans. Anything good? Louie, anything good?
Hitting the links, golfing Saturday and Sunday.
Oh, look at you guys. Harry, where are you playing?
I got to catch up to Brandon Graham's handicap.
I'm playing golf at 3:30 today, 2 o'clock tomorrow in a tournament, and then 8:20 on Sunday morning.
Let's go.
God bless you, man. Good for you, brother. Good for you. I'm building a garden. Actually, I'm not building the garden. I'm making enhancements to the garden. There's a groundhog getting after the cucumbers and the watermelons. I'm going to be like Bill Murray in Caddyshack, man.
Me and Harry are enjoying the outdoors golfing, and Mark's at war with an animal.
Nice. Fire in the hole. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Everyone, like and subscribe. Locked On Eagles. Like and subscribe to all things Locked On Sports. Of course, you got me with your Locked On Phillies, Locked On Sixers, Locked On Phillies postcast, Locked On 76ers daily with Keith Pompey. Harry got you with your postcast during the Eagles season. Louie's got you covered each and every day right here on Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Be back with you guys on Tuesday. See you then.